Welcome to another edition of the USF Football Radio Show. The Bulls are back at home, Raymond James Stadium, Saturday night to host the Rattlers of Florida A&M. Head coach Jeff Scott joins us. Coach, big day against Florida, 66,000 plus in the stadium. And your team has some things to hang their hat on now a little bit, outscoring the Gators in the second half, making some adjustments, making some plays. Objective is to win the game. We all know that, but some things to feel good about.
Well, first of all, and it's exactly what you just said. It was special to have so many people there and so many of our Bulls fans there, and especially coming off of a year where we couldn't have fans. To see all the green and gold up there, it was awesome. And also the fact that many of them stayed around for the second half when we finally started to play some better football. To be able to have our fans there to encourage our guys and give us some good energy there in the second half was a real positive. But yeah, like you said, obviously, we're not in the business for moral victories or being close or anything like that. The first half was very disappointing, really, both offensively and defensively. And I told our guys at halftime, we're going to really find out about this team, right? And we do a lot of talking and preparing and kind of feeling like we are in a better spot. But ultimately, you find out in those moments. And so, I just told our guys, hey, there's nothing we can do about the first half. Nothing we can change about it now. The only thing we have a chance to do is impact this second half. And I want to see us go out there and win the second half. Let's just treat it as a 0-0 game. This is an opportunity for us to get better, and we need to do that. And, so I definitely probably the biggest bright spot on a disappointing loss was to see the way the guys fought in the second half. And I really think that, those are the best two quarters we played in the first two games, two challenging games, obviously. And hopefully, we can build off of that second half there against Florida as we get ready to go into this weekend's game.
Coach, when you reflect on the past 2 weeks you've had of practice, obviously going into NC State, an abbreviated week, although you did have the fall, and then you get a full week going into Florida, were there any differences in the quality of how your team practiced?
I thought we'd practice pretty good. I mean, last week we only got to practice for an hour because of the lightning and all that, ironically, the day before the groundbreaking of the indoor. But, you don't really look back at that as excuses. I think ultimately, I mean, the biggest challenge is we got to get better tackling, and we just don't have many players. We got a very few defensive players right now that are able to play, and a lot of those guys got banged up shoulders, and so you just have to make a decision. Are you going to go tackle full speed in practice and have a chance to lose one or two more guys and have to put some walk-ons out there on Saturday, or do the best that you can? And so that's a challenge. That's not just unique to us, but whenever you are short on depth, that is a challenge when you get into the season. You can do a little bit more of that in the preseason when you're not in game week. But that was probably the biggest thing that showed up defensively. We just had we had 20 missed tackles, and when you're going against talented players like on the other side of Florida, those guys can really run. And you got a chance. You got a guy in a position to make a tackle, and you got to make it. It just kind of go back to a couple of the plays offensively. We got a swing route, and we got a guy out there in open field, and their guy makes the tackle, right? And we felt like we had a chance for a big gain. Same thing happens on the other side, and we don't make the tackle. And that's literally, what it comes down to. So we have to do a better job of coaching that. We got to do a better job of drilling that in ways that we can in season. But that's probably the biggest thing that I was disappointed to see that really showed up on Saturday.
There'll come a time when we won't ask this every week, but still got to at this point. How do you evaluate the quarterback situation?
Yeah, still work in progress. That's probably the word I'm using a lot of, progress. I think we definitely showed progress from the quarterback position from game 1 to game 2. I think that when Cade was in there, we actually got, I think, the first 4 third downs we converted, playing with some good tempo. But still, there was just some decisions that need to be made a little bit cleaner, and some plays that he could definitely make that we were not able to make. And in the second half, I felt like that Timmy came in and did some good things. He protected the ball, which was a big thing, coming back from the NC State game where he'd really moved the offense, and then we had the 2 turnovers. It was a big emphasis for him this week is to protect the ball and not turn the ball over. And so I thought he did a good job of that. He still had some decisions that he's got to be able to make that could have made it a little cleaner. And then, also whenever he was in there, we had 2 bad snaps, and that really cost us a chance for points both times. And so There's definitely some things to get cleaned up, but we are getting some good video to get these guys evaluated, and we'll take this weekend practice of watching all of our quarterbacks to decide who we put out there on Saturday night.
You know, I'd like to agree. We did see some good things when McClain was in the game, but I have to ask you, is it just about Timmy's ability, or is it an opportunity for you all to be more effective coaches because there's more plays you can call specifically because his ability to maneuver in the pocket or also maneuver and have design run plays where you might not be able to do as much of that with Cade Ford?
Yeah, well, I think, if I look back at my background at Clemson, I've had Deshaun Watson, right, where you could do some of that stuff and run around, and then we had guys like Trevor Lawrence, right? And so it does change a little bit of what you do play calling wise. Whenever you have a guy that's, maybe a bigger threat with his feet, then there are certain plays that you may run, and yes, they kind of get you out of trouble sometimes. If you get back there in scramble situations, you can look at both of Florida's quarterbacks where they made some nice extended runs whenever we had a chance to get a little bit of pressure on them. And then, with the other guys, it's more RPO where it's either, if you hand it off, if you don't hand it off, you pull it and you throw it. So there's different ways. Trey Marsh is a guy that kind of does a little bit of both. But, yeah, I mean, Timmy definitely the thing that I like to see from him that I've seen is it doesn't look like the game is too fast for him, right? He's making quick decisions. He has some quick twitch to him. I think that the throw that he made out of the end zone, we're backed up on the 1 yard line. If you go back and watch that on video, he had a guy right there in his face. He stood in there and had such a quick release, able to deliver that ball. So that was definitely some positive signs for a young guy, 2 games out of high school.
That's it. I mean, you tend to forget when you see him play sometime that this is a guy that was playing high school ball a few months ago. Now he's in front of 66,000 fans playing a top 15 team in the nation. Doesn't look intimidated.
Yeah, and I think he's a guy that's only going to get better. He's still, getting more reps here in practice, and as more reps he gets in the game, he's going to continue to get better. And I think Cade, the same way. Even though Cade's an older player, he hasn't played a lot the last 3 years. He missed his senior year of high school due to an injury. So, he's still trying to get some experience as well. And, that's really kind of how we're looking at these first 4 games is to let these guys, along with Trey Marsh, hopefully be able to get some experience and for us to make the best decision moving forward going into conference play.
If my memory serves me correctly, I think you had 7 receivers catch the ball for you guys this past Saturday, but one stood out as he's always has. Xavier Weaver. Can you talk about his progression as a player, both on and off the field, and what's making him so successful in this offense?
Yeah, I said it, this past spring, Xavier had a great spring. I think he has a lot of potential. He's got some quick twitch to him. He does a good job on his releases and getting down the field. And then also, the best receivers that I've had the opportunity to coach, they can catch the football in a lot of different body positions, right? And they can reach back and catch low balls and just very, have a lot of flexibility in being able to get to a lot of different balls. And Weaver's kind of that way. If you get the ball near him, he's going to be able to get his hands on it and go up and make the play, even if guys are draped on him. He missed about 10 days during fall camp, the beginning of fall camp. So I think he's just now kind of getting back into, getting his weight back and everything that he lost whenever he was out, and just kind of getting into rhythm. But I've been really pleased with him. I think he's already been a good weapon for us. And I think as we continue to get more consistent offensively, delivering the ball down the field, different things, he's going to be a guy that we continue to target. And then, also really proud of him going back there on the punt return. We really didn't have him as a punt returner this spring. And then just after some things that went on during fall camp, we asked him if he'd go back there. And about the week before the first game was his first time really going back there catching punts. And so to see him out there on Saturday have that 44-yard punt return, that was really encouraging. I think shows a little bit of just his natural athletic ability and change of direction.
You have gone running back kind of by committee. Jaron Mangan got in the end zone a couple of times in this game for the Bulls, but T has been effective as well. Do you kind of like that rotation now? You have the small guys, you have the big guys.
Yeah.
You can match it up.
Yeah, I think as a coach, that's what you're looking for. You're looking. You don't want all the same guy, right? You want to be able to have some different pieces there, and I think Jaron Mangum's a bigger back that, really I think we kind of missed last year. And for some of the short yardage situations, also something that's very underrated, not talked about, is the third down and pass protection. These linebackers this past week were, 250 pounds, and so you've got to have a bigger back to be able to stand in there on third down and stop those rushers. But, I was pleased. That was good for him to be able to get in there and have some success. And I also think, Batti's a guy, he missed some time in fall camp due to some injury stuff, and for him to kind of get back and get in the flow because, coming off a year ago, I really felt like he was making good progress towards the end of the year. And, both Kelly Joyner, Darian Felix, I think we've got 4 guys that we feel like we can count on. It's going to be a long year. Running back's a tough position. And, we're going to need those guys to continue to roll. And as we get into games and certain guys or certain weeks kind of get a hot hand, and we'll kind of feed them a little bit. But they really work well together. Cam Aiken's done a really good job of coaching those guys, really where their assignments are. One of the positives, of a difficult 2-game stretch is we've only given up 1 sack in the first 2 games against 2 really good defensive fronts, probably as good as we'll see all year. And whenever you hear that stat, you immediately think of offensive line, which obviously those guys have a big part of that, but also the running back is an important piece of that, and protection and knowing who to block and then executing the block. And so that's a positive coming out of these 2 games that we'll continue to hopefully build off of.
Coach, one of the guys that's starting to stand out on defense, the more and more you see him play, is T.J. Robinson, the freshman you guys got here locally. I'd like for you to talk about him and just his progression as a player as well. I mean, you guys have lost 2 DBs at this point, so he's a guy that we're going to have to depend on, obviously. But what is he like as a player, and what do you guys expect for him from the remainder of the season?
Yeah, I like TJ. He's a business-like type player. He doesn't do a lot of talking. He's serious about his work. It's important to him. He's a guy that's going to take notes in meetings. He's a real cerebral guy. He's a smart guy. He understands. He can see splits by the receivers and understand what they're doing. He asks really good questions whenever you're kind of during the week getting ready for an opponent. And, he's long. We really wanted to be able to add some length and some speed at the corner position. And, he got here a year ago, right about fall camp, but unfortunately that was before the transfer rule had taken place, so he had to sit out a year. And he worked really hard on scout team and gave good looks over there. And so it's been really good to be able to see him go out and play. And I think he's a guy that's going to continue to make plays and continue to get better. Again, like we're talking about a lot of these guys, he's played 2 games maybe in the last 2 years. And so these guys are getting some valuable experience against some really good teams. It's really just going to kind of make us stronger and sharper here moving forward.
Stay with us. Wide receivers coach Bobby Bentley will join us later in the hour. Bulls and Florida A&M coming up. We'll preview that game as well when we come back on the USF Football Radio Show. Night game coming up this week for the Bulls. Saturday, Raymond James Stadium, 7 o'clock kick for the Bulls and Florida A&M. Coach, before we get into that game, let's drop back a couple of days and talk about Wednesday here, the big announcement on the practice facility, and a little stadium talk, too. We knew the practice facility stuff was coming. I'm not sure we knew the stadium talk was coming as well, but that was an exciting day.
Absolutely. I think for me, what gives me a lot of hope and optimism is the leadership that we currently have in place here. And, it's one thing to kind of look at where you are, and it's another thing to be able to find solutions to be able to get to where you want to go. And really, when you look back at the great history and the 25 years that we've had of this program, there's a really good foundation. And like I've said before, foundations are meant to be built on top of. And so, I think with Michael Kelly as our athletic director and the leadership here at the university and with Will Weatherford being our chairman, there's an alignment and vision of taking the next steps of really kind of catching up. I mean, really, if you look at the last 10 years in college athletics and college football, there's been a lot of investments in facilities, and that's huge when it comes to training your current team and not missing days of practice due to indoors and not having indoors and those type of things. And then it's really, really big in recruiting. I think that's when players come on your campus, they want to see what investments you've made because it shows them the importance of your football program to that university and to that athletic department. So for us to have the opportunity now to be able to show these recruits and show our players and our community this beautiful indoor facility that we're going to build, that's going to be a huge step. And then also to have the boldness to be able to talk about, looking to build an on-campus stadium. That just gets me really excited about what the future is here and what we're building.
Coach, how do you manage the expectations of incoming recruits? Because I'll tell you, the conversation of a stadium was brought up when I was on my recruiting visit here 12 years ago. So how do you manage the expectations of an incoming guy who's looking down the pipe like, hey, I might be in school 4 to 5 years. Is it going to get done when I'm there? Obviously, we have plans in place, but also communicating the proper situation to the recruit as he's incoming.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is we're talking about this indoor facility that they will. We're going to have this hopefully completed by next summer. And so all these guys that we're talking about, they're going to walk in, day one into a $20 million indoor facility that'll be as nice as anywhere in the country. So that's the first thing. And then the next message, talking about the stadium, is we're looking for players that want to come be a part of building something. And just like, talking to some of our juniors and seniors of our current team that definitely are not going to be here and play in an on-campus stadium, but what they're doing right now, the work they're putting in and the progress that we're going to show here this season and the next few seasons is going to help build the momentum to be able to build that stadium. So, 10 years from now, whenever they're bringing their children back to campus and their family back to campus and walk into the stadium, they can say, hey, I was a part of building this. I was here during a time where we were building towards this. And so that's kind of the message that I give these recruits is, hey, not only do we have the indoor, we have other plans that are very serious. Anybody that knows Will Weatherford and his background, he's not a guy that just says things. That wasn't just something he came up with the night before. There's been a lot of meetings and things taking place to get to the point for him to make a strong statement like that. And obviously there's a lot of work that has to be done and money raised and those type of things. But I think we're showing that we're taking true action, and I think that's what recruits and high school coaches and families in the area, what they want to be able to see from our program is that we do have a plan to move forward and continue to improve in every area.
It's interesting because Raymond James is such a spectacular facility. I mean, it's a terrific place to play. But that feel of an on-campus stadium where the students are walking across campus from the dorms, it's just different, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what this is not as you pointed out, this is not a question of Raymond James versus an on-campus stadium. Raymond James is obviously a fantastic stadium and venue, and it's done really well for us here in our program, and will continue to do well until we get that. But whenever we talk about an on-campus stadium, it's just that. It's what you're talking about. It's our campus and our university being able to have something, that we can come and have events, right? And that's what, and I said this at the press conference last Wednesday, and you think about all the alumni across the country going back to their campuses 7 times a year, right? And it's all around that football game, those home games, and that becomes a tradition, and that's how you really get engagement of your current student body, and then they become alumni and continue to come back, and I think that's what makes college football special. It's not just the game between, from the first quarter to the fourth quarter. It's the tailgating. It's all the stuff, with your former classmates and your friends, and these kids just grow up coming to games on that campus, and then they decide they want to go to school there one day. So there's a lot of benefits. You look around our campus now, it's incredible how much this campus has grown over the last 20 years, and we've made some very meaningful investments in so many of our buildings on campus. And I personally don't think there's another, building that you could build that would have the chance to bring our campus together with current students, faculties, and alumni and people in the community like an on-campus football stadium would. So that's what gets me excited about it.
Coach, when you take a look at FAMU, where do the matchup advantages lie? I thought you guys did some things extremely well, and I know you said you're going to look to build on them. So not to get too much into game planning, but where do you think the matchups lie with FAMU?
Yeah, well, as you know, from kind of the games that we've had and the adversity that we've had, for us, we're still, a work in progress. I think, obviously, not playing one of the top teams in the ACC and top teams in the SEC, that's definitely, going to be a change for us here as we kind of move forward and get into more of our conference play here in a few weeks. But FAMU is a program that I got a lot of respect for. I mean, they went 8-2 2 years ago. They were not able to play last year. They're 2 points away from being 2-0 this year. And all you got to do is look at this past weekend and see some FCS programs that come in and beat highly thought of college teams. I believe there's been 3 or 4 FCS teams beat Division I FBS programs this year. So we're definitely nowhere in a position as a team to overlook these guys. We're out there trying to do everything we can to improve our team and get a win. But whenever I just turn on and I've gotten through most of the video now, they're very athletic. They've got some really good skill players. Running back, receivers are very dangerous with the ball in their hands. So that's again, it kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier. Being able to make tackles in space is going to be really key this week, because they do have some dynamic playmakers at the skill positions. And then defensively, they're very sound in what they do. They're not super complicated. They're going to line up in a 4 down. They're going to play a lot of cover 4, but they keep everything in front of them, and they're very disciplined. They don't give up cheap plays. And really, that's what you're looking for as a coach. You want to be able to go out and be able to tell your guys that, hey, if we go out and execute and handle the things that we can control, then we have a chance to have success. If you don't, it don't matter who you play, you're not going to have success. So I think it's going to be a good opportunity for us. Hopefully we'll kind of build off of the last 2 quarters of this last game and really start playing some complementary football, offense, defense, and special teams playing together like I saw in that second half last Saturday. And if we can do that, then I feel like we're going to be able to have a great game Saturday night and be able to get on the other side of this.
You have history with Florida A&M's head coach. Does that help? Does it hurt? Does it matter?
No, it doesn't matter. It's fun. Their head coach, Willie Simmons, and I were teammates at Clemson. He was a quarterback for 3 of the years that I was there as a wide receiver. I've got a lot of respect for him. He's done a really good job with their program there at FAMU and at other places that he's been. I stay in touch with him. He actually came up for some of our summer camps this summer. Him and a couple of his coaches came over to evaluate some of the local area guys, and I got a chance to visit with him a little bit. And so we'll get a chance to kind of visit a little bit before the game. But once the game starts, you got all your focus in your guys, and he's going to be doing everything he can to improve his team and get a win, and we're going to be doing the same thing on our sideline.
Coach, I think one of the greatest things about the opportunity to be a head coach of a football team, regardless of level, is you get the privilege to lead young men. What are some of the things you're talking to your team about in the midst of what you all are dealing with from a progression standpoint, and as you battle to get towards your goal? What are some of the things that you're talking to your team about, whether it be character, off the field, in the classroom right now?
Absolutely. I think that's a huge part of our job as college coaches, right? You maybe get NFL, and it's kind of
different.
It's a little bit different, and it's all about just the football, and obviously the football is a very important piece here. But we're dealing, like you're talking about, we're dealing with a 18 to 22-year-old young man, first time away from home, and I firmly believe that these 4 or 5 years that these guys are off at college, are some of the most important years of their life, and the decisions that they make and the habits they form, the character and discipline, all the things they show are going to have an impact on the next 40 or 50 years of their life. So, I take that as not just a huge opportunity, but also a huge responsibility. And honestly, that was one of the reasons I got into coaching, is I saw the impact that a coach could have on the players, and I wanted to do that. And so, right now we're getting a heavy dose of learning about adversity and to be able to keep moving forward. We've talked a lot about the word grit. And I really think there's been a lot of studies out there, just out in the real world, if you will, in society, is intellect and wealth and all these things. None of these things are test scores. None of those things are as good a predictor on success as grit, right? The people that have grit, that can show up each and every day and continue moving forward no matter what, right? And I mean, just literally showing back up for the team meeting that next day and being there and going to practice and just continue to push through no matter what. It builds a resilience. It builds a mental toughness that I think is probably lacking a little bit in our society. And the ones that have that are the ones that are going to be successful, because the reality is, as you know, you're always going to have adversity, right? It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter where you work. Or you're always going to have adversity. So I think that's part of our job as coaches is learning how to not just kind of close your eyes and hold your nose through adversity, but really to embrace it and to work through it to get to the other side and to be able to see that resilience really be able to pay off down the road. And so that's something that we've been talking a lot about for the last year. And again, I think you saw that in a small way there in the second half. I mean, down like we were at halftime and put a lot into that game. For that group to come out and play the way we did in the second half, that was a good test of that grit and resilience, and definitely something that we'll be able to take as we move forward.
Coach, thanks. Good luck on Saturday.
Great, thank you.
Head coach of the Bulls, Jeff Scott. Stay with us. We're going to focus on wide receivers for the rest of the hour, and the Bulls in Florida A&M Saturday night at Raymond James Stadium. Back after this on the USF Football Radio Show. Welcome back to the USF Football Radio Show. We will have a game Saturday night, Raymond James Stadium, the Bulls in Florida A&M, and then it's out on the road, Provo and Dallas after that. Wide receivers coach Bobby Bentley joins us, first year on the Bulls staff. But, Coach, you go way back with Jeff Scott. We talk about college football and football in general being kind of a small fraternity. Everybody kind of knows everybody, and you go back to the state of South Carolina with Coach quite a few years.
Yeah, I've known Coach Scott, I guess 20 years now, and his dad a while. You know, he was head coach at South Carolina. Went to my first coaches clinic back in the day in Columbia, and he was the head coach, and just good people. You know, I've known him a long time.
Coach, you've been around the game for a long time, right? When you take a look at where the game was 20 years ago compared to where it is now, you know, I find a lot of older coaches who don't like the game in some ways. But what do you like about today's game as it relates to some of the things that are going on with name, image, and likeness on the field, off the field? What do you enjoy the most about today's game of football?
Well, I think just to address the name, image, likeness, I think it's a thing that should have happened, 20 years ago.
Wow.
25 years ago, or probably even more. I just remember having my, being a high school coach, and my former players would go to college, and I'd see people walking around with their jerseys on, and they were asking me for money, and I never understood that when I saw people, making money off the young men, and just wasn't a fair process, I guess you could say. But I guess I look at things differently. But I think it's a great thing for the young men to be rewarded for what they're doing with their athletic intelligence and their athletic property. So it's really good. As far as the game's changed, it's more of a speed game. It's definitely more of a speed game, less contact. But I remember somebody coming to our high school practices, and an old school coach, and said, "Man, you never hit." And I said, "No, we don't. We do a little hitting in the spring, but we don't hit during the season." That's just my philosophy. I think that's where the game's headed, and Coach Scott has manipulated our schedule to do what we have to do with this practice schedule, and I just think that's the way the game's headed. And no more Oklahoma drill and that kind of thing. I know a lot of people say that's not good for the game, but try to keep people more healthy, and that's kind of where the game's headed, Sam.
I miss Oklahoma as a linebacker. I don't know. I'm not even going to lie to you.
Oh, I know Coach Muschamp wants us to do Oklahoma every day, but back when I was with him, we'd do it every day and started out practice that way. But the game is changing, Sam. I think that's where it's headed.
You made your mark originally as a high school coach and an administrator for a few years as well. Do you miss that at all now that you've been immersed in the college level for a few years? Is there a purity of high school that's a little bit different, or are you glad to be where you are?
I'm glad to be where I am. It's a season for everything. I've enjoyed my time as a high school coach, enjoyed my time as a head coach. Really, I guess that's the biggest thing that, when you're a head coach as a high school, you're in charge of so much. You're in charge of the entire program, the school spirit, to get the community involved. We was in charge of the youth leagues. I was in charge of all of that. But now, I'm in charge of my receivers, and I'm trying to get the receivers to be the best they can be, and to be the best South Florida Bull they can be, and be the best standard they can be on and off the field. And you just kind of change in life. Your seasons change, and that's where we are right now, and I'm enjoying it.
Coach, you probably have the deepest room on the team right now, and you have a room of guys that can do everything. Can you just sit and talk about some of your guys and what they bring to the field? Because you got a guy like Xavier Weaver who's doing the things that he's doing, but then you have Amari and Dollison. Then you got a young guy like Jimmy Horn. So just talk about your guys. I mean, coach, players love being talked about by their coach, and this is an opportunity for some of those guys to hear what you got to say about them.
Well, I'm very proud of this group. We are deep. We do have a very deep group. I mean, we play 2 deep, in every game, and sometimes 3 deep at the 9-man position with Yusuf Terry and DeMarcus Gregory and Xavier Weaver. Really excited about what they bring to the table, not just from the passing game standpoint, but we had some pancake blocks out there against Florida, and that's really,
Wow.
as a receiver coach, to watch you guys putting DBs on the ground blocking. They've taken a lot of pride in their blocking. I think we can continue to do a good job with the details of our routes. We had an out and up call to up Sam, and I just felt like we got impatient with it. We went 2 steps instead of 4. So we can still clean up some things with details, but overall as a coach, I'm just excited about what all those guys bring to the table. You bring up OD, Marion Dollison, being a guy from South Carolina, just really proud of what he's done. Really had a great camp, but got hurt his hamstring, and probably would have been playing more if it wasn't for that. But we've got to get him the ball because he's electric. He really is fast. He's 21 miles an hour. A physical young man. He's really like a tailback. He reminds me a lot of Debo Samuel, young man we had at South Carolina, and now with the 49ers. I think Latrell Williams brings a lot to the table with his physical prowess as well. He's doing a good job. We talked about Yusuf and DeMarcus doing a good job providing depth right there at the 9-man position, and they can both make plays. I'm really excited to watch Yusuf continue to develop in the offense. I see that he's getting more confident every day. Bryce Miller and Jimmy Horn in the slot. Bryce is kind of the crafty old veteran. Really does a good job teaching Jimmy the things that the nuances of the position. Jimmy's probably the most overall skill player in the room from a speed, talent, electric footwork, other than Weaver in the entire room. And then you got Sean Atkins and Holden Willis at the slot when we go 10 personnel. And Holden's a guy, too, that, the fans haven't seen a whole lot. He got to play a little bit Saturday, but, he's got a lot of talent as well. And it's good to see Sean go out there and get a couple catches Saturday. And their hard work getting paid off when they get a catch or 2.
Well, it's an interesting group of wide receivers. You have the true freshmen like Horn. You have some veterans. You have some high-profile transfers. How do you go about bringing all those guys together in the early camp and making them a cohesive unit?
It's what I tell them every week. Anybody can coach a sheet of paper and get an assignment and say, hey, here's the plays. I think anybody can do that. I think the art of coaching is to get a group of young men to buy in together and play together as a group. And I think that means anybody can go run a play, go run a curl route, go run a dig. But are you going to care about your brother, and how are you going to help block when the running back needs you to block? Or are you going to help block on a bubble screen when Latrell runs a bubble and you're going to go block the corner? That's what we try to do. And on Wednesday nights, we do a circle meeting. We talk about mental toughness and mental training every Wednesday night. And that's the kind of thing where you're trying to build this program to where we've got to take it. Yeah, we've got talent, but we've got to continue to build together and work together and become a team and not just a group of players.
Coach, when you're in practice and you turn on that film, what defensive player on the other side of the ball consistently challenges guys in your room and most importantly help the guys in your room get better?
That's a good question. When we go one-on-ones, I think Day goes out there and goes hard against us. Brock lines up and tries to compete every day. I hate that Christian Williams and Will got hurt. They were really probably the leaders of that group over there. Matthew Hill brings his lunch box every day and to work, plays fast, gives us a good look every day. And those guys compete, want to go out there and compete every single day against us. And I think we help them, and they help us.
You look at the schedule this year, Coach, and it's no surprise that the first 2 games, 2 of the toughest teams you're going to play, maybe, depending on how things play out in the year, maybe the 2 toughest you're going to play all year. it's a hard way to start the season with a lot of new guys. How is this team holding together? You know, we see them excited on the sidelines. It seems like they're in a good frame of mind as they battle through this.
That's a good question, and I think, you know, from the outside, you know, Coach Scott has taught us to kind of stay within our circle and stay in worry about us and not worry about what's outside the box. But you know, the guys hear it. They know our tough schedule. They know it, and they can watch video and they see the difference too. They definitely see who we played against and understand who we played against. And yes, it's been 2 tough defenses. It has been, but you know, iron sharpens iron, and we just got to go out there and get better. Some of the things that we've had issues on are not just about the other team either. It's about the route depth. It's about alignments. It's about splits, which has absolutely zero to do with your opponent. And during the NC State game, I didn't like the way our demeanor was as a group of receivers as things were going on. You know, we missed some things. We were open and this and that, and I didn't like our demeanor. I didn't like our body language. I thought this Saturday was much better. And, you know, yeah, you missed something, black box it, let's move on to the next play. And I thought our guys handled that much better this Saturday than the previous one.
Talk about the guy we might see delivering the ball to your guys majority of the time this coming game, and Timmy Mcclain, and talk about what he brings to the game and connecting with your guys.
Well, you know, Timmy's definitely a talented young man. You know, just watching him in practice and watching him through, you know, camp, and he's extremely talented, and I'm looking forward to continue to get him more reps, to get him polished. He is an extremely talented young man, and just us all be more consistent. I think it's probably the biggest thing, whether it be Timmy or any other quarterback or our receiver room, just being more and more consistent. That's kind of where we've been so far.
Coach, thanks. Have a good game Saturday against the Rattlers.
Thank you for having me.
Wide receivers coach Bobby Bentley on the USF Football Radio Show. Welcome back. We're looking forward to being at Raymond James Stadium again on Saturday night game this time, 7 o'clock kickoff for the Bulls and Florida A&M. Sam, this is an interesting one. I mean, you had the ACC, you had the SEC. BYU is lying out there in the weeds. We're going to get them pretty soon. Now you have an FCS team. But, boy, look around the country. The line between FCS and FBS kind of blurred a little bit after what happened in Tallahassee and a few other places. This is a game that is going to be a challenge for the Bulls.
Right. I think there are several factors that can contribute to FAMU being successful in this game. However, I think the Bulls take this one away. I think this is game 3, and this is where you'll see USF get closer to their fullest form. And I also think this will, like you said earlier, Jim, you can't take a team for granted in this game of football. But I also believe this is an opportunity for this team to breathe. I think a lot of guys will come into this game very confident. And like we saw with Florida, a lot of these guys played against each other in high school. So I think it's going to be a great weekend. It'll be the second night game, but the first night game that this team has played at home. I think it'll be very energetic. And it'll be a great opportunity for this team to get on track and go into BYU, again, very close to their final form as they try to get more efficient on all 3 phases, offense, defense, and special teams.
Bulls have won all 3 prior matchups against Florida A&M. USF and the Rattlers have not met since 2015. Looking forward to it on Saturday night, 7 o'clock. Our airtime will be at 5 p.m., and then 2 in a row on the road after this one at home Saturday night. Thanks for joining us. Back next week with another edition of the USF Football Radio Show.